Good morning, friends. Welcome. Nice to see you checking in. So many familiar Dharma friends, practitioners, sense of just pouring into the Dharma hall together. I share with you, Bart, your appreciation and delight and good fortune at getting offered a ride to the Mulan. Maybe some of you noticed Bart had posted in the Sangha Live forum and become of some health challenges and just very difficult to organise transport. And did I see, was it Wim who offered you a lift? I saw something, I think, in a Facebook comment or something. So that's great. Wim is an old friend of the Mulan and has been on staff here, and that's great if you can share the journey down together. Yeah, that's great. All right. So another day, another Dharma, another opportunity to sit together. We had this theme. We were talking about fear and fearlessness yesterday, that vision and that possibility of living not by getting rid of fear, but we might say living in a way that's much vaster than fear. So there's a sense of a kind of expansiveness of being, a relaxation of being, a clarity of being, that one, and therefore a confidence of being. One knows, fear might arise in a momentary adrenalized survival response, but that actual psychological and emotional layers of fear, they just can't get a grip anymore. They can't get a grip on this openness and expansiveness. So maybe different ways of exploring aspects of fear and beyond fear this week. And I thought I might speak just a little bit this morning before we sit together about optimism and pessimism as expressions of fear. And, you're both familiar with those movements, and you might have a sense of yourself as being one or other of those things, or having one or other of those tendencies, or I tend to be more pessimistic or optimistic, etc. And it's generally more pleasant. Optimism is generally more pleasant than pessimism. But they're both kind of limited perspectives in some ways. The idea that, things are bad and they're going to get worse, not particularly helpful. But equally, the idea that things are good and they're going to get better, not particularly evidence-based. So I'd like to just look a little bit beyond those. Maybe some of you have heard me tell that story before, of when my children were young, driving along in the car. My eldest was reading a book with the word optimism. It was maybe, 7 or 8 years old, and didn't know what the word meant. So asked me, Papa, what's optimism? So I explained, and I used the glass half full, glass half empty analogy, right? For glasses, to the halfway. Optimist might say, it's half full. A pessimist might say, it's half empty, and that describes the different views. And then my son piped up in the middle of that, who was younger and hadn't really been listening, and said, what are you talking about? So I thought, here's a chance to see if he's more optimistic or pessimistic in his approach. So I said, Naran, if I was to give you a glass and it had juice in it to the halfway point of the glass, what would you say? And he said, thank you. And I said, because there's something about that, naive and childlike though it was, that points to a way of receiving life beyond optimism and pessimism, right? rather than our endless value judgments about whether something is, better or worse, whether it meets my wishes or doesn't, whether it's enough or not enough or too much. Or oh, thank you. Where we might receive in a way that's kind of open, curious, connected, appreciative, etc. So we can see optimism in a way as an expression of fear, the fear of that there won't be enough, the fear that I'm not enough, the fear that I won't have enough. And some of you spoke yesterday about fears, fears of aging, fears of death, fears of loss, fears of loneliness, fears of being alone, fears of losing a loved one, etc. And so what we call optimism, we can see underneath the view about the way the world is, or the view about the way things are going, or the view about what's going to happen. There's some kind of fearful, insecure sense of lack. There won't be enough. I won't have enough. I won't be enough, etc. So optimism might seem the opposite. No, there's going to be lots. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. But of course, we don't know how it's going to be, how anything's going to be, how I'm going to be, how my health's going to be, how my situation's going to be, how the world's going to be. And so we might see that optimism can often, especially if it has a kind of forcedness to it, if we're insisting, it's a sort of counterphobic response to fear. Right? You understand counterphobic? So the more phobic means fearful, basically. So optimism is the more phobic response. Oh no, things are bad. They're going to get worse. Things are difficult. I don't like this. And then optimism is a counterphobic. It's a more inflationary response to paper over, to cover over the insecurity or fear of lack underneath. It needn't be that. There can be. There's another quality that we wouldn't quite call optimism, but that's this sort of quiet confidence. Not that things are going to be great or things are going to be good. Who knows how things are going to be? But that quiet confidence that however things are, there's a capacity to meet them. There's, like we were saying yesterday, nothing to be afraid of. And I know that can impact, harshly or difficultly, because we have these things that we think are things to be afraid of. No. When that quiet confidence is installed in our capacity, well, what is there to be afraid of? Pain? Pain is inevitable in some way. Death? Death is also inevitable. I don't need to be afraid of death. Actually, I need to be grounded enough in experience so that at the moment of pain or danger or death or misfortune of one kind or another, then I'm actually able to orientate to it skillfully and find an appropriate response. Stay kind of loose and open rather than getting tight and fearful, etc. So, in a way, a Dharma vision, a clear vision, a free vision, is one that sees beyond optimism and pessimism, sees that things are neither, most essentially, things are not good or bad. Things are not getting better or getting worse. Things are like this. Tatata is a Pali word. They're such. They're just like thisness is the only terms on which we can really meet experience. And the more our view and our comportment is freed from fear, the more we have that sense of the ambiguous, just like this nature of whatever's happening, whatever's arising, and wherever we feel like things are pointed. And there's a liberation in that, in no longer being so concerned by whether things are, better or worse for me, as I like them or not, as I want them or not, as accords with my wishes and preferences or not. It's very noisy, all of that. Very noisy. So of course we prefer it. when things are pleasurable and easy than when things are painful and difficult. Of course we do. But what would it like to honor that inevitable built-in preference without pulling for it so much and without creating all kinds of inner drama and difficulty when things are not as I would wish or don't accord with my preference? It's possible to not fear danger and difficulty. It doesn't mean we like them. It doesn't mean we don't do anything to stave them off. Well, of course not. We do what we need to try to, maintain ourselves in a way that's suitable, that's comfortable, that allows us certain freedoms and capacities to be of service to others. And to not be defended, right? It might be, in our activities, we might do things to defend against danger and difficulty. We don't walk down that street at night if it seems dangerous, do whatever seems to be good to take care of one's health, etc., etc. But in the inner feeling is of being undefended. I'm not afraid of danger and difficulty. I don't like them, but I'm not afraid. This heart is undefended, so that when danger and difficulty, death, inevitably, absolutely inevitably, when they do arise, that it's the undefended heart that can meet them. So that's the invitation of our practice. That's the invitation of this morning's meditation. Invitation to an undefended heart. So please take your seat. And like this then, we practice together. Feel your way into your posture. And take your time with that. Take your time just to really come into this, the ordinary miracle of this sitting body, this sensitive body, breathing body. Letting your attention just gently gather and soak into the feel of sitting here. As your attention settles, have the intention to relax. To be here in a way that's simple and not effortful. In a way that experience can naturally reveal itself in awareness. In a way that awareness naturally lights up experience. So that the sensations in bodily life and the feel of sitting here are all just happening quite naturally in this field of awareness that we call meditation. Letting your breath be natural and relaxed. Don't try to control its rhythm or depth in any way. Just let breath breathe. And feel it. Feel the in-breath all the way along it. Feel the out-breath. And feel that pause that's there briefly at the end of the out-breath. And let that just be enough, these first minutes. Not trying to do anything. Just letting breath and body and awareness come together. Just entering into being here. Relaxing into presence. breathing body, gentle awareness, relaxed presence. Can't make a drama when you find that habit has taken your attention away. Just let your practice bring it back. And the willingness just to keep re-establishing a basic embodied presence. More and more if possible, again and again and again if necessary. Re-establishing the sense of just being inside your experience. Re-establishing this intimacy with a breathing body. Re-establishing this taste of doing nothing. This taste of just sensing, allowing, opening. Meditation practice is a constant invitation to be receptive, receptive to the touch of this moment, to the expansiveness of consciousness, to the changing field of sounds and sensations, to the passing of thoughts. An invitation to be receptive without holding on to anything. Receptive to the arisings and the passings. Receptive with an undefended heart. What's the experience like of an undefended heart? What would it be like to receive experience as you sit and breathe and sense in such a way that there's just a kind of softening or melting in the chest? And there's a certain openness in the shoulders, that sense of just being available to what comes and goes. And a sense of your awareness being suffused with kindness, friendliness, tenderness, fearlessness. In the last few minutes of the sitting, just whatever's happening, whatever your experience is like, just seeing if these basic qualities can be the primary orientation. So that what's happening, we're intimate with, we're interested in. And yet what's happening is less important than how we're meeting it. Meeting this moment with a sense of contact and curiosity and care. A sense of intimacy and of allowing. A sense of an undefended heart. In this way we see through ideas of better and worse, of optimism and pessimism, of good and bad experiences, of how things should or shouldn't be. We meet experience in its suchness. We allow the brief, ephemeral passage of things just the way they are. Just like this. Where we see beyond optimism and pessimism, where we see through our wishes and preferences. We meet life fearlessly with an undefended heart. All right. That was meditation. Time for questions you might have. It's nice to see many of you sending goodwill and good wishes to Faith, who's having her surgery today in Bordeaux, having mentioned it yesterday. Also, Laura, I see you, I know that you wrote and asked me to speak about dispassion and disenchantment this week. And maybe that'll come up in the way of things, but it would be helpful for me if you have a specific question, like rather than asking about those as general terms, it's like what's going on in your own life experience, practice, that's bringing that question alive, and then maybe I can answer it a little more precisely if you give me a little more of the what's personally alive for you with that. All right, so feel free if you have questions while you're considering them or writing them. Just make a very quick mention of the fact that all this is, Sangha Live offers teachings and practices like this, and teachers, whether me or other teachers other weeks, show up to offer teachings and practices. It's all offered freely. It's free of any kind of commitment, it's free of any charge, but it's not free of costs. There's lots of costs, right? Keeping this show on the road and having a staff of really, wonderful people, small staff, but nevertheless, staff, some of which are working full time, really, on all the elements that it takes to keep this going, from programming to corresponding to scheduling with teachers and designing pages and writing text and producing images and doing accounts and everything that it essentially costs to run an organization. And so all of the income that Sangha Live gets, all of the income that teachers get, all of the support that enables us to keep doing that just comes from you. And so it's just the invitation to consider making an offering that supports that, even if it feels like it's a very small or modest offering. It's actually that it is small, modest offerings that mostly, it's mostly just people like you making small offerings, and many small offerings allow us to keep going. And hey, if you also have the possibility and the wish to make a large offering, feel free. Anyway, you can do that at sangha.live/donate. George just put the link in, and I think that link is probably also in the email that you get to remind you about these sessions. So thank you. Thank you. All right, questions. I might need to put the spectacles on. Camille says, I feel localized fear and pain of my inner child. I bear it in meditation, but it does not dissolve. I feel like inner child does not trust it. How can I facilitate this trust? So I feel localized fear. So where's the fear, Camille? And how do you know that it's your inner child? So just phenomenologically, what's happening, right? That there's a fear and pain that's there. Localized means, I assume you can feel it somewhere particular in your body. What's happening that you're making the connection with that being the fear and pain of your inner child? That's one thing, just to make sure, what am I doing that's making that? And if there's some kind of memories or imagery of being young that are suggesting themselves as being your inner child, well then, in that case, what does that young sense need? Maybe, I don't know if you have children or nephews or nieces or some other, child that you're close to, but if a child came to you in distress, fear and pain, what would you do? You don't need to explain, don't you need to manage, you don't need to get rid of the pain and fear. You'd provide a kind of, you'd want to naturally provide just a reassuring, loving present, comforting presence. You might take the child into your arm, hey, I'm here. It's okay. Right? You don't need to make the distress go away, but your loving, reassuring presence would allow the child to kind of process and metabolize and digest and recover from their moment of distress. So it's the same with the sense of inner. There's pain and fear that's here, and I feel, for whatever reason, I can recognize that it's related to a younger time in life, or undigested fear from childhood, or whatever we call inner child. So how can I use my attention, my awareness, to actually go to that, not trying to get rid of it or fix it, but going to it with a loving, tender, reassuring presence. And if you have the imagery that goes along with the sense of inner child, you might have the sense of kind of inviting that younger one of you to sit in your lap. Maybe she doesn't feel like sitting on your lap, but would sit opposite you. And just offering a gaze, a look to her that's loving, reassuring, comforting. Or if you have that sense, that sense of you can sit in your lap, just providing a sort of enveloping presence, contact. That's the same thing. Loving, reassuring, comforting, soothing. Yeah. Okay. Where are we? Back up in the questions. Eleanor says, In my dream, I had a very intense fear of losing my 3-year-old goddaughter at a swimming pool. I woke up with a real feeling of fear and sadness. How to go about these fears? Are they real? Not the first time I've dreamt of losing a child. Yeah. So I often think the most helpful thing with intense dreams is not necessarily the analyzing the story of what happened and what it means, but actually the feeling one wakes up with is the important thing, right? Fear. And it may be that a fearful dream happened just because yesterday we were very specifically exploring fear in the meditation. Right. And so fear was just sort of there in the psyche, and then the dream life is an opportunity to process what is a little unprocessed in their waking life. So how to go about those fears? I would say just in a way the same thing I was just saying to Camille before. Just being tending. It's like you wake up with fear, tend to it, care for it. It's like, oh, I feel distressed. And how you might care for it might be just lying there, kind of offering soothing attention. It might be that it feels too intense lying there in the dark and in the night, etc. And you might want to get up and walk up and down gently in your bedroom. You just walk up and down as if you're walking up and down again with one who's afraid. And there's something very healing, actually. We learn a tender heart. We learn that we don't need to, that fear, even though it's uncomfortable, we don't need to be afraid of it. We don't need to push it away. We don't need to fix it. We don't need to get past it in some way. Actually, we need to tend to it, and it melts. And of course, that fear is also very closely related to love, right? Why did you feel so terrible? Oh, because you love your daughter. Well, the fear of losing a child is partly about fear of lack of control, right? Like we explored a bit yesterday. But it's also about the fear. Oh, it's because of love. That's why it feels intense, difficult, alarming, right? Because of what the fear is pointing to is the loss of a loved one. So as you tend to the fear, you can you start to feel the fear is a kind of distortion or a shaking up of what underneath is this kind of deep love. Beautiful. Yeah. All right. Helena says 3 weeks ago, I was told that my 17-year-old cat had a terminal illness. Right. And I first thought was no, and I became curious what that was about. I don't really want reality to be like this. Then exploring the fear behind it. I'm afraid of feeling a great emotional loss. Yeah. So, and then remembered I've experienced loss before and survived. Beautiful. Again, the fear is just similar to Eleanor's question. The fear is related to love. Right? And because, none of us, we don't want to lose one we love. And so, and yet sometimes that's natural. I don't want to lose one I love. And yet it also is natural to lose those that we love, right, to death. 17-year-old cat. There's only one destination for a 17-year-old cat, And so on the one hand, I don't want to lose the one I love. Right? And then the fear getting hold of that, and as if the fear could make reality different. And then recognizing that, sounds like, and then coming through that and coming back to still have a great love for the cat, still have some sense of not wanting to lose it, still gonna be sad when you do lose it, and yet that process can be freed from fear in the way that you're speaking about. The capacity to greet reality as it is. And therefore you can go through still with the love intact, and still with the kind of poignancy of not wanting to lose the loved one, and still with the kind of the process of missing them and grieving as they're gone, but without drama, without the grip in the heart of fighting with reality. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, thanks, Helena. And then, oh, very nice. I just noticed your post, Detchen. Yeah. And no question, but those years in the Thai monastery in Bodh together and teaching with Christopher. Okay, thank you. Sinclair talks about having CFS. Is that chronic fatigue syndrome? I assume that's what you mean, but it could be an acronym for something else. It came to me that fear of relapse drives all decisions. How to handle this? Is it to make it protective and not a straitjacket? So if you're talking about chronic fatigue, I'm not entirely sure if it's that or something else. No, I suffered 3 years of post-viral weirdness, mostly fatigue, after COVID, getting COVID the first time. So for 3 years, my health was, and my sort of energy levels and robustness and capacity was very, very limited. And, just going gently. The fear of relapse is the kind of, the difficult, unpleasant, grippy, anxious state, right? But there's a real concern under there. The real concern is, I need to go gently, right, so as not to relapse. You can't 100% prevent relapse, but there's whatever you need to do with your health concern, whatever you need to know that you need to do. And so it's like, keep moving the emphasis to, okay, what do I need to do? I need to go gently. Oh, but I don't want to. Oh, I wish I could do more. Okay, that's just unnecessary drama. But underneath is the truth that I need to go gently. Oh, I'm afraid of relapse and how awful it would be if I find myself bedbound again. Okay, that's unnecessary drama. But underneath it, there's a real concern. Right? I don't want to relapse. So it's like separating out the emotional drama from the real concern. You can't stop the emotional drama coming because it's become formed as a habit. But what you can do is you can recognize the difference and shift from feeding the emotional drama to dropping the emotional drama, but not. It's not like denial. It's not bypassing. It's not just pushing it away. You shift your attention from the emotional drama to the real concern. Yeah. So fear, anxiety, sort of negative fantasies about what it would be like, and I shift to, I don't want to relapse. Therefore, what do I need to do? How can I best take care? How can I go gently today, etc. All right. How are we doing? There are more questions, but I'm wondering if we're going to be able to get to any more. Let's see, one more. Jenny says, I often noticed an unnamed knot of anxiety in my chest when I meditate. Thoughts tend to be future orientated, worries. I had a dream last night. I let someone down. I'm thinking letting go of pessimism and optimism is useful. Any further advice on how to address underlying anxiety? So similar to what we've been saying about providing reassuring presence, right? But with anxiety, if you come into the anxiety, sometimes just the fact of feeling it tends to make it worse, actually, rather than better. And if that's the case, if it's mild anxiety, reassurance can melt it. Tender awareness can melt it. But if it starts to increase it, because being with experience is based on the fact that it's okay to be with it. It's okay to be with this. Fundamentally, it's okay. Whatever it is, it's okay. But anxiety is the feeling that things are not okay, and then they're going to be even less okay. And so sometimes you don't have the ground of that okayness to meet it. And if that's true, you need to actually reorientate your attention to something where you can feel okay. Right? If this doesn't feel okay in the chest and coming to it is too uncomfortable, move away. Move away to something that feels okay. It might be the feeling of your hands resting in your lap. Oh, those feel okay. So come to that which is reassuring, grounding, resourcing. It might be go to sound. Oh, sound is bird song. Oh, that feels okay, etc. Yeah. All right, friends. I see there's more there. I will read the flow of texts coming down, and I saw there was a comment by Wolfgang underneath. Nice to see you, Wolfgang. That's another one from year in 90s and maybe noughties on retreat together in India and Bodh Gaya, etc. So I'll read the rest of the chat flow, but time is up for today, so we'll end here. And if you have a question that didn't get answered, please feel free to just repost it tomorrow, and we'll try to get to some more. So friends, I wish you a day as much as possible of navigating things gently with an undefended heart. And you might just use the day to notice the threads of excitement or alarm, optimism, pessimism. It's kind of bipolar, small scale, but sort of bipolar loop we go through, getting excited about, getting disconsolate about, etc. And that sense of maybe seeing how we can meet things in their suchness, in their just like thisness. All right, very good. Thank you. See you tomorrow.